Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTB World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at the political situation of the country in light of what has transpired today, particularly, of course, in Lahore, ahead of what was said by the Punjab government, the imposition of Section 144, under which, of course, there has been a crackdown on the PTI workers in Lahore, something that has been talked much about by the PTI leadership as well. And in terms of course, moving forward with regards to the PTI chairman's claims of a political rally and the election campaign, in which only 55 days are left after the announcement of the date by the president. This is something that they are claiming to be intentional and having ill intent in terms of what was decided by the Punjab Home Department. And then there's, of course, legal proceedings also that the PTI leadership has said that they have started against this particular decision, since this was something they argue needed to be coming in from the Deputy Commissioner. What is, of course, important here is also that we lost one precious life today, and unfortunately, whenever there is such a political or any other chaos in the country, it's always the common people who suffer and who are under the line of fire. Unfortunately, in all of this chaos, we lost one precious life today, and there's, of course, a large number of people in sides that are to blame. And so it's important for us to recognize as to what is going on and what is important, and prioritize that in the country as we move forward in the political discussion. We're going to be taking a closer look at what this means for the legal and political options for the PTI, what it means for the election campaign, since of course they are scheduled to be held in KP and Punjab, and then of course the kind of legal questions also that it raises in terms of the imposition of Section 144, and then moving forward the kind of actions that are now going to be undertaken by both the sides. So we also had the Interior Minister speaking and talking about how it's important for the PTI to observe the law and protect its citizens as well, and carry forward with the kind of instructions or the kind of concerns that are being shared with the leadership of security threats, and that is something to be considered. There were, of course, other marches also planned simultaneous to today in light of the Women Day, and because of that there was a lot of concern regarding security, which is being cited as one of the reasons. Still, there is, of course, a lot of issues being raised as to the responsibility of the caretaker government in order to hold the elections, and then, of course, continue with the political rallies and election campaigns. Now, moving forward, what will be the future of that still, of course, remains to be seen. At the same time, we also heard the Law Minister raising questions with regards to what is being carried out in terms of the judiciary regarding the elections in two provinces and the kind of legal complications that holds for general elections that are expected in October. And then, of course, moving forward, the kind of complications it's going to present once the tenure also ends. So we're going to take that also into account as we discuss the political way forward for all the parties, and, of course, what this means for the people of the country as well. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by Senior Analyst Farrukh Pitafi. We've also been joined in the studio by Mr. Hafiz, Ahsaan, and khokhar, who's the Advocate Supreme Court. Thank you very much, Hafiz, for being with us today. And we've also been joined by Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who's a political analyst. He's joined us online. Thank you, Dr. Niaz, for being with us in the debate and taking the time out. Let me start with you, Hafiz. There are, of course, legal concerns and questions raised as to what is the right way forward and what sort of considerations have been taken into account, particularly with regards to the imposition of Section 144. Can you clarify the factors that are being cited as a way to move forward with this particular decision? Of course, the security threats remain, but in terms of the timing, it seems that there is a lot of questions that can possibly and are being raised by the PTI side as well. What does that mean in terms of what legal consequences and scenarios that exist? And then also what the PTI leadership is talking about in terms of this not coming in from the Home Department, but to be coming in from the Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Today is a sad day in Lahore. There was a police clash with the protesters of the PTI, and one precious life was lost, and so many injured in Lahore. But simultaneously, there are two aspects. One aspect is a political aspect, and the second is the constitutional aspect, and the third is the legal aspect. You're talking about the imposition of the Section 144 CRPC in a particular district like Lahore. So if we have the history of such Section 154, it is being misused since the days of the British regime in subcontinent. they used this section 144 to control the mob, to control the procession, and it keeps continuing on the different regimes in the dictator side and political sides as well. So now instead to impose section 144 and to control the mob or to control the 5 or more persons in a place, it is more appropriate, like other countries, that we ask the political leaders or the political parties to present their application and to set a place for them for holding such protest where there would be no law and order situation, and it would also be feasible for the law enforcement agencies to control in such untoward incidents. But unfortunately, it is going on in Pakistan, and there is also a disconnect between the law enforcement agencies and the political parties as well. And simultaneously, in current constitutional issues in Pakistan since April 2022, now we have reached at such a time that we don't want to engage with each other, we don't want to engage with the government, we don't want to engage with the political parties, despite the fact that there is a decision of the Supreme Court of Pakistan and they have set a line for the election in Punjab and KPK. But as far as it is purely a political issues, so these political issues have to be resolved by the political parties, and much responsibility lies on the sitting government, either sits in the federal government or the caretaker government. They should behave in a more responsible way, that to treat our citizens like they are equal and they are not being discriminated.
Right, absolutely, and that responsibility, of course, remains. Dr. Niaz, the considerations regarding where we stand today, especially in terms of the elections coming in KP and Punjab, what do you think is reflective of what happened today, particularly with regards to the PTI workers and the kind of clashes that existed with the police, or in light of course, the kind of political chaos that we have been seeing? What do you think this serves to say about the situation in the coming days till the election, and then of course specifically also with regards to PTI's political moves ahead?
Well, this is, the fear that a lot of people have been expressing, that these elections may be, much more violent than what we see normally in Pakistan. There's always violence in Pakistan during elections, but now, the environment is just so charged, and there is so much polarization and whipping up of emotions on all sides, that it seems that people will not be able to keep their workers under control, keep their processions, their public meetings peaceful, and all this means that we might have a lot of violence, which will be unfortunate, and it's unfortunate that we've already lost one precious life today, even before the election campaign has even started. So I think there is a need for all parties to really sit back and try to take deep breaths and try to get the anger out of themselves, and in the same way cool down their workers. Otherwise we will unfortunately see a lot of violence in the next whatever, whether it's 1 month, 1.5 months. In terms of the government is still making the point that it seems reluctant to hold the elections. So, but if it's reluctant, I think it should go back to the Supreme Court. That's the only legal option left for it. Is to file a review petition and give whatever reasons it thinks it has. Some of the reasons that it's giving about security situation not being good, I don't think that really holds. I think the situation was much worse when the 2013 elections were held. There was so much terrorism, and ANP and PPP suffered the brunt of it. Similarly, things like there is a valid point that it's better to have neutral governments at the federal and provincial level. But then that's a concern. The right thing is to go back to the assembly and pass a law, which may not be possible because the government doesn't have a two-thirds majority. So keep it for the future, and find other ways of ensuring that the partisan governments, whether it's the federal one now or the provincial ones later, do not attempt to or do not succeed in influencing elections. And we've seen that there were elections held on 25 seats in July when the PMLN government was in place, but still PTI managed to win PMLN won a lot of by-elections when PTI was in power, so it's not impossible. I think the only valid point that the government could have raised is about whether Pervez Elahi was rightly elected as the chief minister. He became chief minister because of two very controversial decisions. The first one by the Supreme Court on its interpretation of 63A, where it held that the votes will not even be counted, whereas the constitution doesn't say that. And then there was a decision by the Election Commission of Pakistan to de-seat the 25 PTI dissidents, even though they did not get a letter from the parliamentary leader. They got a letter from the party head Imran Khan, and as Supreme Court later clarified, letter from party head is not enough, as was the case with Shujat Hussein's letter. So there were two controversial decisions, but then the government never raised those points in the recent hearings in the Supreme Court. So again, the right way for it is to go back to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. Farrukh, moving forward, and especially with regards to what has happened today, there is a lot that can be said about who's responsible for what, and especially when we talk about the loss of life that has occurred today. And I'd like to talk about the legal aspects of that moving further as well. But in terms of where we stand today, in the kind of political mess that we've seen in the past, what sort of value does it even hold when we talk about responsibilities of different segments or different institutions or political parties in such scenario? Because it seems that more or less any such factors or incidents are being taken as part of the parcel or collateral damage that has to happen, and there's not much done in order to recover or hold anyone accountable.
Right, Sanam. And I think that among many other things that we have been losing over time is sensitivity to the value of human life. Frankly, one life lost is too many. And let us condole with the family of the deceased. This was a grave loss, and one should condemn it as well. Again, it also affects negatively the image of police, especially if it is proven any time that it is police that was responsible, because simultaneously, if you haven't seen, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or Delhi and even in Karachi, where terrorists actually struck, police are especially at the receiving end. Even in DI Khan today, even today in DI Khan, one policeman was killed by terrorists, right? Because of that, we have to understand that vitiating the environment is not acceptable. Having condemned the today's incident, and I think that in your question lies the answer. All segments are responsible for holding peace, and I think the provocation today by PTI and the reaction by the caretaker government in Punjab both were unnecessary. They both actually played right into the hands of the other, and that shouldn't have been the case. But before I actually build on this, let me also very quickly remind everybody who's watching that today is International Women's Day, and let us use this platform to express solidarity with all women in this nation, not only my own family members, the leader of this program, that is you, and everybody who's watching either is a woman or has a woman in family or cares about a woman. I think today belongs to the women, and we should remember that another incident, heavy-handed incident took place in Islamabad. That kind of reaction is not acceptable either. Having said this, now let us go back to what I was saying earlier. I think that there is something wrong with whosoever is advising Imran Khan Sahab. It reminds me of something that I said to PMLN back when PTI actually took over. Remember that at that time PMLN's own leadership was behind bars, and they were being subjected to a lot of pressures, and that's why they were trying to react. And how? By actually becoming the headlines in newspapers. At that time, I reminded whosoever I met that the first rule of business is that if you are in the eye of storm, remove yourself from it. First of all, prove to the other side who's attacking you that you are not important enough, so that when you are out of the equation, then the incumbency factor kicks in, and the all forces actually start going after whosoever is ruling the country. That is the moment they actually realized that they actually got a lease on life, and today they are governing this country. Imran Khan Sahab could have removed himself from, or his party, from this kind of a situation had he not been adamant to destroy every opportunity or every leverage he had. He actually, the way his party quit parliament, the way they have actually thrown away the posts of governors, and then they have actually thrown away the two parliament or assemblies that they had in their hand, that actually proves the point. But after that, they haven't learned that even at this moment they are in the eye of the storm, and they are number one problem being perceived by the system. So what they do is, there were two other leverages that they still had. Media appearances, they have burnt it down.
Okay.
The second one was, protest. And if you keep on doing it, if, state of Pakistan or government of Pakistan is also like a computer, a smart machine that keeps on learning from your mistakes. When you do it, immediately after that, there will be some kind of method to compromise that as well. So right now, whosoever is advising Imran Khan doesn't understand that A, you have rained on somebody else's parade today. Women's Day was being celebrated. You shouldn't have actually chosen this day. Secondly, why actually go so stir crazy that you end up compromising all the leverages you had? At this moment, they have thrown it away, which is strange and pardon
Perhaps
my French,
not so strange also.
pardon my French, stupid.
But thank you, Farrukh, for recognizing and bringing forth the importance of the other gender as well, and for recognizing the contributions of women all around. And we hope that we give them the space to be able to do so, and there's more who are recognizing that. As we move forward, Hafiz, there's also the concern that whenever we talk about incidences such as today's, and it's not just about the loss of life, in terms of whatever has gone wrong, how the police has acted, how the government political setup has acted, how the PTI has acted, there is so much that everybody is pointing towards and blaming. But in terms of the legal proceedings, it's always said later on by the different segments involved that they're going to start legal proceedings against this or that. And we still don't really see that actually materializing into any form of justice for anybody. And so in terms of such chaos, what sort of factors do you think can be even taken into account for justice to take its course? What sort of value will any legal steps taken by the PTI or anyone else be in terms of them actually becoming something tangible for anyone?
There is two aspects of these cases. One is the police capability and the police, how they have been trained to deal with the procession or the mobs if it is taken by the political parties or by some groups. And the second point of view, whether there is some substance or there is some material or a mechanism is provided under the law. If someone, or especially from the law enforcement agencies, makes some mistakes or goes for the excesses of his authority, what is a legal consequence? The first is that there was a law of the 1861 Police Act, and it continues till 2002 police order, and there is no doubt on it that since before even independence of Pakistan and after the independence of Pakistan, the police has been using by the political bosses to control their political opponents, and they have failed to provide the law and order situation comfortable to the citizens of Pakistan. And there is a general perception about the police that they are not good in their service. An effort was made in the tenure of General Musharraf, and Police Order 2002 was promulgated. But the mechanism provided to control the police excesses, like the District Public Safety Commission, the Provincial Public Safety Commission, or the National Public Safety Commission, including the police complaint authorities, were not established. And now the situation is in all the provinces is now there is no check and balance over the police powers. initially there was some check and balance from the district magistrates, but after the police order 2002 there is no check and balance on the independent side, and if something is doing by the police, no one is there to control them. So this is the one aspect. The second aspect is how they are being trained, how they are dealing to control such situations, and how they have the skills to control the mob or negotiate with the people who are protesting. On this side, the police lacks the capability. Their officials or their officers, they lacks the capability, and only they are obeying the orders just to control them and give the message to their bosses that we have controlled the procession. This is not the way we live in a democratic country. So there are certain limitations even for the protesters, but simultaneously it is important for the law enforcement agencies to restrain and to exercise such power which should not be beyond the legal mandate or happening in such a situation that there is a loss of the people's life, or the people are being injured by the police tortures. Even today we have seen some pictures that the people who are going outside from their streets in a particular area, they were beaten up by the police officials. So this is not a way in a democratic country. But at the same time, it is also for the important to the political parties that they should adopt such a strategy not to chaos in the country like in Pakistan, and we are entering into a political scenario. Election Commission has announced the election schedule. President has given the date, 30th April is the date in the Punjab, and Punjab is almost 50% of Pakistan. So the caretaker government, the Election Commission of Pakistan, or the federal government or the law enforcement agencies, they should sit together with these political parties, design a strategy that no such incident would take place in future, because this is against even the credibility of the caretaker government and the federal government, and no country can afford that such untoward incidents would continue in Punjab, or especially in other provinces, when there is a long chain of the election. First we are going for the KPK and Punjab, and might be in September or October, if the assemblies are not dissolved, there would be a national election in another 2 provinces. So this is the time to restrain, to negotiate, and make a strategy by sitting all together that there should be no law and order association, and no such casualties would occur or take place in future.
Right, Dr. Niaz, the issue of maintaining law and order, especially in a time like this when the security threats are also being cited, and then of course the election campaign is on the rise with such a high polarization in terms of the political scenario of the country as well. How do you think that that can even possibly be worked towards? Because we keep on talking about the need for stakeholders and all parties to sit down and talk about it, but is that something that can be achieved through this manner? And then specifically also, when we mention the instances of police crackdowns, it's always an impact on the way that the political parties or the protesters that have been treated is a matter of concern, and is raised as something that is where the problem lies. But in terms of what perhaps the PTI chairman has done or the leadership done, we always talk about who's responsible. So when we talk about the police and the incidents involved, such as today's, should this also not be a wider scale responsibility as to how we move forward?
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate that the Punjab police, whichever the party is in power, has this tendency to overreact and get into brawls with people. Then there is this tendency to use Section 144 to crack down on peaceful protests. Now it's true that the PTI does have a tendency that its rallies and processions, etc., do get violent quite often. But still, I think you can't preemptively just decide to refuse to give it permission. It's a registered political party, and it has the right to take out processions. And if somebody breaks the law, then of course you can act against them. So it's unfortunate that there is no sign of the political parties all coming together for the greater good of the country to sit down and develop some codes of conduct about the elections, even politics otherwise. So all in all, it's building towards a very violent election, and that's where the role of the election commission is even more crucial because the responsibility of ensuring peaceful, fair elections lie with the election commission, and it has the right to ask all the different government and institutions to help it out in order for it to complete its responsibility. So this will be a real test of the election commission of Pakistan. They've shown some good capacities as well in the past. The way they stood up when there was the Daska election issue, but they took up a neutral stand. So I hope they will maintain the same neutrality this time, so that there are no accusations from any side. But then it's also true that the PTI has a history of not accepting elections that go against it. So a lot of it comes back one way or the other with the nature of politics of PTI, which is so confrontational and divisive, that it has really vitiated the political environment. Things had gotten a bit better between 2008 and 2018. There were at least competition, political competition, but then also some ground rules were emerging. But all that is lost, and we are back to the 1990s.
Right. Farrukh, earlier today I heard a senior journalist claim that Imran Khan of 2023 is a force to be reckoned with, and I wanted to ask your opinion on the matter and whether or not this is true, and if it is, does it stem from anything to do with the PTI chairman or his party and the substance that he brings forth, or is that perhaps a byproduct of the conditions or situation we are in?
Right, Sana, first of all, I don't know which senior journalist you are referring to.
Mr. Raza Rumi.
Raza Rumi, okay. Most of the journalists that I know, you had to name one of my friends, by the way. But most of, all of our senior anchor journalists, they are, somehow very impressed by Imran Khan Saab's alleged charisma, and that continues. So I think they're only starstruck. But yesterday we talked about one opinion poll that actually takes into cognizance, popularity of individual leaders. Somebody pointed out that when you look at the other political parties and their leaders put together, because they are in power, the number exceeds Imran Khan's. But regardless, the fact is that if you think that Imran Khan is automatically going to become Prime Minister of Pakistan, or for that matter, Amir-ul Momin, that is not going to happen. There are two courses. One that I told you about, if you are in quicksand, stop struggling. That's how buoyancy brings you back to the surface, right? Otherwise, you keep on sinking. And this is what is happening right now. He doesn't become, automatically the leader of the country. The other way is wait it out. See all this impulse against you. If there is an impulse, or if you have offended people, let it pass. Once that happens, then you can return permanently or with better credentials. Having said that, now let us also look into what happened today. While I totally agree with the panel today that there was heavy-handed tactics that we saw, we also saw some very strange images. PTI supporters were also carrying weapons. Not all of them, but many who were sitting in vans. So those pictures have been circulating on social media as well. So at this moment, we have to ask, why is it that PTI is so desperate? If it is already winning, and if it is so sure of the victory in the upcoming elections, why is it that it has to resort to these desperate measures? That would be because they are not certain. In the past, they have done whatever they wanted to. They staged a very long dharna in Islamabad, and then they had a lockdown, and repeatedly they kept on coming back. And the system somehow favored them, right? And because they are so reliant on the system, they can't imagine any other situation. Right now, what is happening is Imran Khan Saab, whenever you talk to other politicians, they say we are ready to sit together. Whenever Imran Khan Saab actually is asked to sit with the counterparts, he sees only one man as his counterpart, and that is Army Chief. And that is also serving Army Chief. The rest of the people he discredits as looters, plunderers, and chores, right? Because of that, you cannot have the kind of conversation that is there. And because that support that was with him in the past is not with him, he now thinks that perhaps no matter what you do, you have to resort to desperate measures, and that's why he keeps on burying himself. One more thing, Sana, regarding the peaceful holding of elections. Earlier, I was hearing Dr. Saab, he was talking about, caretaker setup and how it is very important. My humble submission is that it is a bad concept. Without any prejudice to any caretaker setup. My concern is that it creates a bubble in governance for 3 months. They don't have powers, they are struggling with the circumstances, and eventually what happens is, you have to see that there is going to be 2 transitions now. One to a caretaker setup and then to the next elected government. And because of that, our economics really becomes messed up. So I think the better example is of India, where the incumbent government continues, but it is made lame duck by the election commission. And after elections have actually taken over, the control returns to the elected government. In our case, essentially because the courts are very active, if they are going to now decide who is going to be CCPO of Punjab, then you should not have any caretaker setup. Just shift the responsibility to the Supreme Court and ask our lordships, you control everything, you know better about governance than anybody in the country, so you should be controlling everything, right? That said, I think that the idea of caretaker setup is really bad because it creates extra hurdles in transition process.
All right. And Hafiz, this is something I wanted to speak to you also about, and you can add your thoughts to what Farrukh was earlier saying, but also bring us to light in terms of the kind of complications that have been pointed out by the Law Minister as well, especially in terms of the caretaker setup right now in KP and Punjab, and then moving forward, if we go ahead with the elections and then the general elections in October, the kind of complications that will have, not just for this elections, but then for the rest of the tenure as well.
It is another, the caretaker composition of the government in the national level or at the provincial level. It is another blessings of the 18th constitutional amendment. And because of that, there was an agreement between the 2 political parties sitting in the parliament, and they decided that there should be a concept for holding a neutral election in the province or at the National Assembly. But the situation is emerging out from the caretaker government. There are the judgment of the Supreme Court, and to some extent, the Supreme Court has observed that it is the only responsibility of a care government to hold an election. So if the only responsibility to hold a general election to assist the Election Commission of Pakistan, there is no need to have a caretaker government, because you are saying that what the process is being mentioned in the constitution, that it should be appointed with the consultation of the leader of the house and leader of the opposition. And we have seen in Punjab that there was no consensus at the first level at the chief minister or the leader of the opposition. The matter went to the parliamentary committee. They were unable to decide, and finally it was brought to the Election Commission of Pakistan, and the Election Commission of Pakistan decision is not acceptable to another political party. So for a 3-month, the idea of the caretaker government might be good, but in present situation of Pakistan, I support Pitafi Saab. This is not a good idea to implement in Pakistan in the given political situation. But now what is the way forward? The way forward, if we have this consistent constitutional legal problem, because at the moment there is a caretaker government in the 2 provinces and there is a opposite PDM government at the national level, so it would be very difficult to have a neutrality in the next election in Punjab or the KPK. And if then there is an election on the 30th April, if it is held in Punjab, there would be another problem for the national election, because there will be another provincial government in Punjab or the KPP might be, and they will again say that there is an issue of the transparency or the neutrality in both provinces. So most important thing would be that if we keep continuing this constitutional or political issues, does it make the political stability or economic stability in Pakistan? So my point of view, there will be no political stability or economic stability if we keep continuing these situations in Punjab or the KPK, and then there is a next turn of another two provinces in the national at the national level. So this is the time to sit all the political parties again. We keep saying on it, and there is except by the political parties, there is a consensus among all the political analysts or the constitutional experts that these political parties should sit together, resolve their issues on the election side, the election reforms, then come on the economic reforms, and then give a time to another government, whosoever will be winning it at the province level or the national level. So this would keep the political stability or economic stability in Pakistan. If we keep continuing on this, there will be I mean the chaos in the country, which is not in the interest of
Pakistan. In light
of
the Supreme Court's ruling of the elections in KP and Punjab, what options exist now to be able to recover from the obligations that you've just pointed out? Because that seems to be the way that we're going to proceed
now,
with.
Under the constitution, it is the legal and constitutional responsibility of the Election Commission of Pakistan to hold and make arrangements for free, fair and transparent election.
But can the political setup go back to the Supreme Court?
Now that there are 2 points. One point is that there is a caretaker government in Punjab, and there is a government in at the national level which has its tenure to continue till August or September. So now the federal government is responsible to provide the funding of the law enforcement agencies to assist for holding the election.
Right,
to the election
I understand that, but
Pakistan.
does the current political setup have the option to go back to the Supreme Court to reconsider any of this, that there will be two separate elections in KP and Punjab, and then we'll have a separate general election?
Hafiz Sahab,
is there any way to go back to that?
Yes.
I just wanted to understand which way your argument actually breaks. Since you brought up the federal government, which is going to continue until August, are you suggesting that the federal government should also go, or are you saying that the election at the province level should be delayed? Because this is the actual...
Under the Article 224, the elections are to be held within 90 days. So there is no concept to extend the period only on the ground of the law and order situation or on account of the paucity of the finance in the country. If we keep argument at this time, there will be an argument other side, and there will be a political chaos in the country.
No, I want to understand your argument.
So at this moment, if Election Commission of Pakistan seeks, and there will be a presentation tomorrow by the Finance and the Interior Division on the finance and on the law and order situation in the country, and if the both departments will make their own recommendations, then the only option would be available for the Election Commission of Pakistan to approach the Supreme Court of Pakistan that these are reservations showed by the department of the federal government, and what we can do now. So at that time, the final verdict again would be the Supreme Court of Pakistan. The federal government does not have the legal mandate to revisit or file a review application.
That's a beautiful answer, but it actually, it somehow actually, since the last Chief Minister of Punjab, who actually dissolved the assembly, was installed by the Supreme Court, and that now CCPO was also actually decided by the Supreme Court, and then Supreme Court also kind of forced the Election Commission's hand into giving or offering a date, and especially through President's office. So why actually keep an executive branch? Abolish it. Let us be a judicially governed country.
No. If we have a constitution and
but that actually works only in one way.
If
Article 63A was interpreted twice by the same bench in two different ways.
No. What was the objective of the Article 63A? The objective of the Article 63 was to control and finish the horse trading in the country. So this was the mandate, and the Supreme Court has interpreted in the ways for the sake of argument.
Right. So hang on. First, it was the party chief who had to decide who should be actually de-seated. The second time, it was the parliamentary leader. So it is the same bench essentially.
Now the only issue was at that time that who will issue the direction. The constitution is very much clear. It is the parliamentary party. The leader of the parliamentary party is giving the mandate under Article 63 to issue certain directions. And if it is being violated, then the party head is a responsible to issue a show cause notice.
Remind me,
Now,
during the
to some extent,
sir, with your respect, during the second hearing or second consideration, there was this mention also that there was errors were made during the first interpretation.
No. The only issue was in the first time there was an observation of the Supreme Court of Pakistan. If the members, they voted against the party instructions or the parliamentary party, their vote would not be counted, and that's happened in Punjab. These people gave their votes to the, at that time, Mr. Hamza Shahbaz Sharif, and these votes were rejected later on by the Supreme Court of Pakistan, because there was an earlier judgment on the point that if a member of the Provincial Assembly or the National Assembly violates the instructions of the parliamentary party, his vote will not be counted. But now this is an issue. If there is a problem, now there is a problem in Pakistan, the political parties are not negotiating with each other, and if there is a constitutional issue, so there is a mandate of the Supreme Court of Pakistan to decide all constitutional legal controversies.
Let us also get Dr. Niaz Murtaza's opinion in the conversation.
And submit our authority.
Right, Hafiz, let me just quickly go to Dr. Niaz as well, because there's not a lot of time. Dr. Niaz, these concerns of course still remain, and there's a lot that needs to be discussed with the judiciary and of course the political parties and the oft-cited consensus that we keep talking about. The issue remains still now that we are in the midst of the elections in KP and Punjab, and then of course the general elections at the end of the year. What do you think this means now for the different political parties in the current setup in terms of the economic crisis, in terms of the judicial complications that are being raised, and then of course the law and order situation and the security threats that exist? It seems that it's a recipe for chaos.
Well, certainly, both, before the elections and after the elections, there are huge risks. Before the election, there is the risk of, violence, much higher violence than what we've seen so far in the past elections. And then after the elections, there is, the issue of, gridlock and the chance that, no party is able to obtain a clear mandate, and that, whoever loses elections doesn't accept the results, and we are back to the situation of 2013, 2014 of dharnas and long marches and more chaos. So that is why it's important for the political parties to try to sit down and sort out their differences, and reduce the degree of polarization and confrontation and conflict to a much lower level that we see in other countries in the neighborhood. Both the gentlemen spoke about, the caretaker government. We can look at the example of Bangladesh. It was the first country to introduce that concept, and it held 2 or 3 very peaceful elections under caretaker governments, and then, they removed that clause. The Supreme Court of Bangladesh struck it down. And after that, we've had 2 or 3 extremely controversial elections in Bangladesh. It's become a one-party state. So I think in some ways, the caretaker government does help. And, at least it's not as partisan as, a political party government into the run-up to the elections. And, Mr. Farrukh mentioned the fact that, caretaker governments don't rule properly. I think that's more of a risk with, political parties, because they've become so busy with electioneering that, they just, forget about governance, and it's all about politics. So in that sense, I think the caretaker setup, we are now the only country in the world that has this system, and I think it's a useful system. But then, of course, the caretaker government should remain neutral, and they should not become partisan. And so far, there haven't been, big accusations against any of the caretaker governments that we've had. They've largely remained neutral, and I hope that continues. But, the onus is on the political parties to, behave maturely and try to reduce the tensions, the conflict, the anger, so that we have, a smooth transfer of power.
For joining us. Thank you, Hafiz Ahsaan Saab, for joining us, and thank you, Farrukh, for always being a part of the debate. There is, of course, a lot of questions that still remain, and we keep on coming back to the big asks from our political leadership, something that we still haven't really seen much happening towards, but let's see whether or not that is going to change. For now, there are a lot of concerns as to how things are going to proceed within the country, but we hope that whatever happens, we're able to provide security to our citizens, which is, of course, the utmost responsibility of the country, and we hope that this is something that we can ensure. That's all that we have from the debate. We'll see you tomorrow.